This is going to be the first video I've done, for the most part, without reading from the books that God dictated to me. I've mentioned many times, Isaiah 53 and the Day of the Lord, which has about 50 chapters. So it's not all Isaiah 53 by any means, but and the other is the life of the righteous, of God's righteous servant of Isaiah 53, which of course is my life. Every word, every sentence, every paragraph, commanded and directed by God that I write it. There's none of this material is mine. I am a man in divine beings. That's what the man of Isaiah 11 is. Now, all this knowledge is not coming from Keith McCarty. They have given it to me. And they control what I say. They even control what I think. I'm just, there's all kinds of ways to say this. You know, I've lived with them now for 13 years. And it's taken that much time, really, for him to prepare me. That, to break my will, to know that I don't have free will, that I am completely and totally in his power, and physically also. Everything. I cannot do anything of my own, period. Now, all this material, the 2 books and the videos, which are each of the chapters, there's about 40, 50 videos that cover what's in the chapters. It's better to read the books, if you ask me. But they talk to me throughout these videos, directing where I go and say, and I don't. They give me a few ideas about what we're going to do in this video. I don't really know. I just got a little brief outline. Sometimes I stop to listen to him. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes he just puts knowledge into my mind. It's things I've learned before that I don't really remember anymore. And that's something I'm going to be getting into. How they control my mind. How all that works. There's some information on it already on video and in the books. But it's really hard to explain. And the reason for it is, I am indeed Elijah. And that has to do with them controlling my mind, being the information of my mind, which we're going to also point out how they've proven that to me. They're always proving it to me and show me things. They're still doing it yesterday, doing it today, this morning. It's just, you know, a lot of it's repetition. But, you know, I wasn't, this isn't something anybody's prepared for, much less me. I mean, maybe Hollywood actors are, people who like to talk to crowds and things like that, had a rough childhood, had plenty of esteem issues, didn't like confrontation because I'd get too angry and quick. And he had to take that from me. And of course he has. But it's all been a very long process. And to me, we're kind of bogged down. Because we've done all this, I've done the books. That's the prophet like Moses. Elijah, I'm about to get into, and the reason I mentioned the mind and controlling it, when you're in heaven, Jewish people, and only Jewish people, God makes that clear in the scripture. Gentiles do not go to the heaven God is creating for the Jewish people. If they want to go to that heaven, they're going to have to convert to Judaism, to being a Jew, since it's both. It's a people and a religion. That's the only way they go to heaven. God doesn't have anything to do with worshipers of a false idol and a false God. And he brings vindication against them primarily because they say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob left them and came to the Gentile. Because the sacrifice by Jesus, the Jew, would have been for the Jewish people. And that'll be a whole nother subject. That gets into Paul, Apostle Paul. And I have a video or two on that. It's Romans verses 7 through 10. And if you haven't seen that video, of every video I have, that's the one to watch. It's my favorite. I wasn't using the books God dictated to me. It's the only time that's happened. I just had the New Testament. It's called the Letter to the Romans, I think it is, and it's written by Paul. I'm not going to get into it, but it's just, you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed. That's the best way, and entertained. It's very good. But again, kind of bogged down because, I'm ready to get out there, and I've offered all this proof. My knowledge surpasses any rabbi out there by far, because I have instant answers from God himself. Now, I can't sit here and just feel like the biggest, smartest guy, and I know it all, but I'm comfortable enough to just sit down and know any question put to me, he'll have me prepared for, because he's proven to me he knows what anybody's going to say to me before they say it. So I'm always prepared. But I still have to be myself, and I am. And I wasn't a perfect speaker by any stretch. I was a lawyer, but primarily a book lawyer. Although I tried cases and I had to deal with clients. But primarily, I researched records for oil companies, starting back in the 1800s, and bringing current land and the people that owned it, which meant I got real familiar with wills and preparing ancestral trees and charts of ancestry, looking for defects in title to make sure the oil companies had the right people leased. And there's a fair amount of that in one chapter of the life of the righteous servant. But there's another proof. There's another proof beyond all this knowledge and the fact that I fit every verse of Isaiah 53. The only person who's ever discovered that Ezekiel went through the same process. Why those words? Punishment, chastisement, bruising, crushing, wounding, and there's another one. What that's all about. And of course, there's a whole lot behind why God did it that way. Why it's so complicated. How can the Christians firmly believe that it describes Jesus Christ when there's so much in it that says it cannot be? Whoever this man is, you cannot offer him for sacrifice. He will not be accepted by God. He's a man of suffering, familiar with disease. Verse 10. God chose to crush him with disease. That if he would offer himself for guilt, and there's plenty on that in the books and other videos, what that means. It doesn't mean guilt offering, contrary to Tobias Singer of Outreach Judaism, which has got the most ludicrous argument for why Israel is in Isaiah 50, is the people of Israel, the Jewish people, are the righteous servant of God. He only uses that term one time, and that's when he's describing what the sages knew to be correct. You have to have a description of a man to come. You can't just say he's coming. You got to have a description. And they called him the leper scholar. Why? He's diseased, and yet he's a very intelligent man. That's me. With all the accounts of cancer that I've given plenty of times before, the fact that I've been given a long life when I was told I'd be dead 20 years ago, and it was never treated. And we just started putting this in some of the videos, but for the first time I went and saw a doctor here recently, just for a minor checkup, blood pressure, those kind of things, not for any kind of ailment. I wasn't sick. And they took some chest x-rays, and it surprised me. I mean, I kind of just figured he didn't let the cancer grow. And I've talked about this in more detail plenty of places, but there's no cancer in my lungs. He literally took it away. Now, my witness is 93 years old, my father, who also saw the pictures. And it was two different, we looked at a set and they said, well, let's run them again. And 3 days later, me and my dad are back with the doctor. And he says, yeah, it's cancer and there's no change in what I told you. Which was, because I said, well, what does all this mean you're not going to treat it? He says, well, you're getting ready to die. That's just how he said it to me. You're getting ready to die. So, but I never had any symptoms. I eventually became a triathlete. And my first triathlon was a half Ironman, which took me about 8 hours. My book also has an account of that. Everything in the book is backing up the verses. It's easy to read the first 7 chapters and to understand who I was, a person who would get very angry and came from a dysfunctional family. And there was trauma in my family, suicides. My mother lost her grandfather, then her mother, then her father, and then adopted by her father's brother, him. And it's pretty graphic. But then in chapter 7, God speaks to me, and it's just how it happened. And then the next 7 chapters are my initial living with God up to this point. But here's another proof, and I don't know how that I can't speak or read Hebrew. They say it's easy to learn. Well, we've worked on it a few times. I got plenty of books on it. But God keeps saying it's best you just learn in Jerusalem, Israel. Just because you'll be exposed to it every day and have to figure it out, and that makes you retain it. But I wanted to point this out, and I'm always talking about the Jewish Publication Society's book, how it was started from scratch in '56, and they spent 30 years on it. And they didn't base it on anything somebody had done before. God tells me it's the best translation out there, bar none. But there are footnotes on every single page. Every single page of the Tanakh. Inundation yields, Hebrew uncertain, basically saying, well, it looks like what was over here in this other book, but it's a totally different context. We're not sure. Uncertain, this and that. I'm going to read a few of them. I'm going to read from a preface of the book about these footnotes. It's a little bit long, but you can fast forward if you don't want to listen to it, but you'll get the idea pretty quick. It is a preface. In preparing the translation of the prophets, which is what I'm primarily interested in, I'm not interested in the Torah. I follow God's laws, and everybody should. But I'm God's servant. I'm not a religious person. I cannot. I was an atheist until He spoke to me for 50 years. Although He came to me at birth, and He's proven that to me. And I can always. There's some of that in the book, but not that much. There's just so many ways He's done it. If you can imagine 13 years with God constantly breaking you down, and at the same time teaching you. It's been an amazing journey, and there'll be more to it, I'm sure. But let me read this. In preparing the translation of the prophets, the translators faced a recurring problem that deserves special mention. The prophetic books contain many passages whose meaning is uncertain. Thus, in order to provide an intelligible rendering, modern scholars have resorted to amending the Hebrew text. They're changing the Hebrew. Some of these emendations derived from the ancient translators, especially of the Septuagint and the Targums, who had before them a Hebrew text that sometimes differed from today's traditional text, which would be the Leningrad Codex, I believe. Where these ancient versions provide no help, some scholars have made conjectural emendations of their own. Many modern English versions contain translations of amended texts, sometimes without citing any departure from the traditional Hebrew text, although they had done just that. And if you think this is bad with the Hebrew, you ought to see what the Christians have done with how they change the way things read over and over again, getting it closer and closer to somehow matching an argument that Jesus is the Messiah. It's amazing. It's amazing what they do. Like the translation of the Torah, and see, there's a discussion like this about the Torah itself in the earlier part of the preface. Like the translation of the Torah, the present translation of the prophetic books adheres strictly to the traditional Hebrew text. That's they didn't use anything that had been prepared before. It's like I said, it's so important to know that Isaiah 53 starts in Isaiah 52, verses 13 through 15. But I haven't seen anything out there, nothing used by Jews for Judaism, Shabbat, what was used by Rashi in all of his commentary. They're in quotes. They go together. There's a demarcation there. That's kind of how you know this is the beginning of the righteous servant, the leper scholar, according to the sages. Okay, and then it starts up. 15 ends that chapter. You come to Isaiah 53, and there's quotes again. The first 6 verses are in one quote. Starts with verse 1, ends with verse 6. And it's important because it's a story. All these people are saying we're sick because we're unrighteous. We have guilt, and God put it on him. And this and that and that and this. That's the witnesses of the righteous servant. And who is he? He's this lowly man that's gone through hell in life. He's disfigured. God uses affliction by itself, but he says he's familiar with disease. Usually you think of affliction and he's crushed with disease. Usually you think of affliction as being of a disease, afflicted with some kind of disease, sickness. But he keeps it separate. Well, an affliction also has always been thought of as disfigurement at birth, as though God did not like you. And of course, I was disfigured at birth, and God tells me, I'm behind that too. I'm behind your cancer. I'm behind your disfigurement. I've been with you your entire life for my day of vindication and redemption of my people in the eyes of the world. I knew you before you were born, he'd say. And I knew what I was going to do with you, and I knew the problems you would have. And I knew what it was going to take to knock it out of you. I knew how hard-headed you were going to be. And on and on and on. And it's been one hell of a battle. I always lose, by the way. I don't fight quite as quick anymore. And that's just the process. I call it God's boot camp. Torment and torture. Heinous acts of cruelty and violence. Wounding. Remember, wounding's in there. Well, he made sure I got wounded before he spoke to me. And in these 13 years, he's wounded me more. Except this time in his power. His power envelops me. It goes through me. But a lot of this is in other videos. Let me finish with this next, an additional proof in the future. I got to start over. Like the translation of the Torah, the present translation of the prophetic books adhere strictly to the traditional Hebrew text, they're talking about this text. But where the text remains obscure and an alteration provides marked clarifications, a footnote is offered with a rendering of the suggested emendation. If you pick up this tonight, you just about can't open it up and not see 1, 2, 3, 15, I don't know about 15, of footnotes on just about every single page. In other words, there's still so much that is not understood of the original Hebrew language from the Hebrew text that they cannot figure out. They say, well, this is the best we can figure. And I've already mentioned some of it, but if the emendation is based on one or two ancient versions, they are mentioned by name. If more than two versions agree, they are summed up as ancient versions. Conjectural emendations are introduced by, and this is in quotes, emendation yields. Sometimes, however, it was deemed sufficient to offer only a change of vowels, and some modifications are indicated by change of vocalization yields. In all cases, the emendation is given in a footnote, which may be readily disregarded by those who reject it on either scholarly or religious grounds. The only exceptions involve such changes in grammatical form as those, say, from a second person to third, or from a singular to plural. In such rare instances, the change is incorporated in the text, and the traditional Hebrew is translated in the footnote. And then it goes in, starts talking about the writings. God can straighten that out. He can tell you, he had the Hebrew language created, however you want to look at it. Now, I don't know how he did it, and I don't know how detailed he'd be. But, and this goes back to the information of my mind. As I said, I don't speak Hebrew. I don't read Hebrew. And yet, if a learned man of the Hebrew Bible, or a rabbi, a teacher, a scholar, a linguistics person, anything, they can ask me any question they want, and I can answer it on the spot. Or he's going to have me write something. I don't know. I don't know how to. He never tells me really what's going on, almost even in a daily basis. You know, he decides everything I do. But he wouldn't be putting it on this video if he wasn't going to do something. So that'll be another proof. How on earth can this guy know that? Well, it could. And I had the knowledge of Elijah on heaven, which we're just now getting ready to get into, which is fascinating. I lost my train of thought. See, sometimes they do that. This still embarrass me. You know, they're still working on me. They say it'll never end. If you wonder why I look over here, you know how it is said Moses spoke with God face to face? And I've explained that, but basically what he does, since I'm in his power, he just turns me, or just directs my head. And there's a reason for this, which I just learned yesterday. It's for me to feel more like a person. Or to continue to be Keith, because it's what it's like. It's just like I'm talking to an invisible man. And it's me and him. We're right here. But the truth of it is, they're like clouds. This spirit let upon me and entered me, as it did Ezekiel, and God is in his spirit, a concept unknown to Judaism, and yet the scripture backs every word I just said up many times. And that's how, and so they're really all around me and within me. Again, if I was in a room talking to who's ever watching this video, God would fill that room, the Spirit would fill that room like clouds, like two clouds. And they would be all around your body. They'd be encircling you. You'd be in their presence. With me, they flow through me. It goes through my body. In other words, my spirit is connected just as the Spirit is connected to God's presence. My spirit is connected to the Holy Spirit and to God. Now, that's not a Trinity. It's three persons in one inside this body, but, you know, okay, so anyway, they control everything I do and say. Now, heaven. They want me to cut it short because I could hear my mom and dad talking. They're old, 93 and 86, and she's had strokes, and they can get angry at each other. You don't want that hurt. But anyway, and it's been long enough. So the main thing is the offering of an additional proof. And I know how hard this is to believe. I know when you read some guy saying he's Moshiach, and because they're already out there, they've commented on these videos here and there. And I'm just like, well, there's the crazy person. That can't be. But you go to their sites and there's nothing to back up their statement. There's nothing there, by and large. You go to my channel on YouTube, and I'll take all the subscribers I can get. I enjoy knowing that people are reading these things. It takes me one more step closer to getting to Jerusalem. And God says He's going to really, at that point in time, I don't have to go through so much with Him as I do these days. I mean, it's just every year has been more intense, more painful, emotionally and physically. Again, okay, well, this is what they want me to get out. Your thoughts and everything, that's not your brain. That's not your brain. What your brain is chemicals, a little electricity, and different kinds of matter. You know, there's gray matter and this and that. Spirit, your spirit literally reads that little electrical impulses, these synapses, this and that and this, and knows what it means. And that's your thinking. Your thinking comes from your spirit. And that's why in heaven you can still be you. Because your brain doesn't go with you. You don't have your brain in heaven. And that's why they have taught me this way. Plus, it's easier for me to go, you know, more and more I'm getting to, nothing's bothering me. Now, He can do that with my emotions without putting me through all this, but He doesn't. He says, I like doing it in the real and using as little of my power as possible on you. But all it takes to make sure if we get this done, we get it done big, and we get it done right. And then see, and we've been going over this just this week. You know, Keith, I am God. Because I'm like, yeah, if they die, see, most of the living expenses here are from Social Security. The house is paid for. You know, and God took me from the world. That's in Isaiah 53. He was taken from the land of the living. Well, He's also given long life. So what happened? He took him from society. He made me terminate my law license 2 weeks after He spoke to me. So I hadn't worked since He talked to me. I hadn't worked at all in 13 years, and I started getting Social Security when I turned 63. I'm still 63, early Social Security. But I give the checks to my dad to pay for him carrying me for 12 years. And plus, we were getting to where we couldn't make it even with groceries for the month. But I'm like, you know, if they die, and God will say, Keith, I know when they're going to die. And I can, if I had to, keep them alive. But I don't want to. That's not the way I do. Do you see what I'm talking about? I like to see it. If I've mentioned it so often, you can only put a half hour at a time on my camera. And it stopped abruptly. I don't remember exactly where I was or what I was talking about. God has told me, the Holy Spirit's always up here. God pretty much speaks within me. It's as though, I didn't finish the face-to-face. But anyway, it's like I'm talking to a person. And it's the same with the Holy Spirit. He's a person. And God just, but they're really just all around me. They can either speak within me to my mind, or they make it seem as though it's coming from a person and we're having a verbal conversation. Now, often I will talk, but they can't talk. They don't have mouths and vocal cords and a tongue and air and everything else. But they can make it seem as though this is where it's coming from. It's still to my mind. And in heaven, which I'll get to, it's in the books, everything's Judaism. And see, this is one of the ways, as Elijah, I recounsel families and draw them, and to do that is to draw them back to Judaism. Get back to synagogue. You've been given a clean slate. Sin no more. And you don't want to miss it. I've been there in vision too many times. It's too incredible. You're a totally different being. You don't have a human body. And you'll have absolute knowledge. You'll have the knowledge you have here on earth of Judaism, of Jews, of the Tanakh, of the Torah, the Talmud. Anything Jewish, you want to learn about it. And see, that's going to help me draw, particularly the young people. It drops off and gets lesser and lesser all the time. And there's other things that, first of all, I don't have to go around saying repent. Okay? I just need to tell people you're sinless right now. And be sure to tell every Christian you see. Because Moshiach is here, Christian. And I'm sin free, according to Jeremiah, a new covenant with God that he has delivered. Now see, that's how I talk. Yeah, and never do that. But, I'm not saying go and get in fights with him. But we're his servants, Jewish people. I'm the righteous servant. I'm a Gentile. But that's today. And so was Elijah. What I like to say, the God of the Jewish people and one Gentile. Just for them to hear. You'll probably hear me say that. I don't know when I'll ever actually convert. That's up to God. I just know that I'm not going outside today. And that can change. But God wants to get this video out. So, you wanted me to get the face, and I stopped so abruptly, but that's the face-to-face part. They just direct you, and it's part of just, sometimes I call it, I say, well, y'all are extraterrestrial, celestial beings. And they'll say, what do you mean we're extraterrestrial? I said, well, what? You don't live down here. And they'll say, you don't even know that's true. So, there's so much fun to be around. But I'm sure when they're just by themselves, there's probably a lot of humor. But, it's like they've been married 1 billion years for those who've been married or a long relationship. After a while, it's really don't feel like laughing together. But they're having a great time. And God He likes operating human beings. And that's what, we got other terms, and, if you saw the glossary of the words and things spoken in here, you just shake your head and say, yeah, I know he's crazy. He's just crazy. God would never, they could, but it makes me comfortable. And that's what it's all about. So I don't know if the personalities I get from them are really true to their actual character. Because but at the same time, I tell them, well, as far as I'm concerned, that's who you are. That's how you present yourself. I said, that can be true of any human. They can present themselves to you in some form or manner, but really, they're not that person at all. It's all fake. But you still, that's who, everybody knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, and you're going to have a better experience in heaven the more you know. Because it's just about Judaism. And I want the Christians to hear that. I mean, believe me, when he says vindication and revenge, just think of the history of the Jews. There's no way, and Germany is a Christian country, by the way, if anybody has forgotten. These false worshippers of a pagan god that they claim was God's human son, or God was him, born in the flesh. This and that, and God made a human sacrifice, and God accepts the human sacrifice that he makes. And none of it makes sense. But he's going to have me out there loud and clear, and I think he's shown how I can be, and he wants them to hear that. And he wants, well, okay, they want me to stop there. What else? Oh, we're going to be doing more videos like this. Now, I've been flipping, like I said, I only got about 40 videos, but you can find about 205 out there because we flip them. Because, I don't get that many views. You can all see that when you look at it. I'm searching out a very small group. I went from getting about 65% of the views came from the United States, and then it was 55%. And in the last 7 days, it has dropped to 18%. In other words, Christians won't turn on any of my videos. They see me, or the motorcycles, which was God's idea, by the way. I was kind of like, these are religious people. I don't know if you should have me putting a motorbike on it at all. But the Spirit will tell me, he said, no, you think he likes walking around with you and being at eye level with everybody and associating with people that we do bump into, which for the most part is homeless people. I'm basically homeless, but I got a home. If that makes any sense. He likes to get me on a motorcycle. I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know if anybody could ever understand. He likes to swim. The Holy Spirit likes to watch movies. I'll tell him sometimes, you got to stop talking. I don't know what, I'm losing track of the plot. And then he'll make me start laughing. He's just, that's just part of his character. God knew this is how I'm going to talk to mankind. And that's how he talks to his prophets. This happened to every prophet. What's going on with me? They were all men and divine beings. And I see these rabbis and, this stumbling block I've had with the teachings of Tovia Singer and Jews for Judaism, that Isaiah 53 is not God's prophet for the day of the Lord. It's the people of Israel. They're the righteous servant. But as I've shown over and over in the videos and in the books, that's not, it's about, it's no different than saying it's Jesus. It's just like a union of the world. And I don't care if he had good intentions. It was a way to steer it away from Jesus. But no, what you should do is stick with your sages, especially Michael Sobek. Our sages say. Right. How come you changed up on this one? Oh, is it because Rashi did? Well, you better double check that. You better check what he says in Zechariah 1. And there's a video on it. He says, we can't figure out chapter 1. We're going to have to wait for the teacher of of righteousness. That always comes on. It's Raku. It's one of these new kind of televisions. But the market is small. Jews are 2% of the planet. Of those, only about 30% consider them observant Jews from the last survey I saw. So you get into a small, and then many of them don't have anything to do with computers. So the market is small. Then I'm trying. Okay. So, right. we're going to be doing more of these type of videos because the material from the prophets, we've covered everything. There's nothing not covered. You know, I can also tell people go and look at the books that are referenced in all these videos in the details. You should read, you know, if you don't have time, somebody says, oh my gosh, this is just too much, you know, that's too many videos, too many things. Again, it's really only 40. They just get a new picture and a new title, and there might be some cleaning of them up. You say, well, if God's telling you what to write, why would you have to, you know, do some editing and proofing and correcting? Because I got to still be a person. I'm still Keith. And I was the worst proofer and corrector in the history of oil, gas, and mineral law attorneys who write title opinions. I miss stuff every time. So I still do. But, so I'm going to end this here. And I don't know when we'll do the next one. I had no idea we were going to do this today. You know, they just started talking about it. And he's been irritating the fire out of me for days now. Sleep deprivation. Just so much. I mean, they don't want me to get too detailed, but it is one hell of a process, to say the least. By the way, oftentimes, actually, the Holy Spirit has a prop. It's not a real angel, but we have another angel in here with us. We consider him half angel, half human, and the Holy Spirit as a child. It's real funny, but it's awful, as painful as it is most of the time. I have an awful lot of fun in here, an awful lot of fun, and I don't even have to leave, but I know I'm going to. You know, I want to get back in the world. It's been 13 years, just me, God, and the Spirit, my elderly parents, and my sister's here too, but we don't talk. I mean, we're cordial, but, you know, we don't sit around and play backgammon or anything. So, that wraps it up. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this.